Good morning, everyone. This is our one of two breakout sessions in our half-day executive seminar virtual session. My name is Harvey Rosenthal, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of NIAPRS, the New York Association of Psych Rehab Services, which since 1981 has brought together peers and providers and peer providers to be a force for change, to work to improve services and social conditions and public policies that promote health and wellness and recovery and full community inclusion, and maximum potential for people to achieve their maximum potential in communities of choice. Our work has never been more important. NIAPRS has really sought to jump on this. This is very personal to us. Like so many of our staff, I'm a person in recovery, so many of our board members. So it's really important, as we have in the past, to really step up in times of crisis and bring that message of hope and healing and recovery, and action at this time. So we're really pleased to be able to do that, even just the awful times. And let me just say in advance, I hope all of you and your loved ones and your neighbors and your colleagues are safe and well, and that we together in this big family that we're a part of within NIAPRS and in New York and nationally support each other throughout this crisis and beyond. You know, one of the things we've been talking about is things will never be the same. We'll never go back to the way things were. And in some cases, that'll be better. There's more collaboration. There's more stepping up and keeping eyes on the prize. There's more use of virtual technology. So all these are really going to ultimately be positive. But here we are, still in the midst. And people are dealing with fear and illness and isolation and loneliness and despair. And so this is a perfect presentation by national experts, my friends who back decades. I've known them decades as the experts and great pioneers that they are. So I'm really pleased to be able to introduce them to you, and maybe later I'll tell you a little bit about more of what NIAPRS is doing. But keep an eye on our website, www.niaprs.org, for all kinds of services and webinars and other opportunities we offer pretty much every day. So again, it's my great pleasure. Peggy Swarbrick is a dear person, a leader, an author, advocate within the mental health system, consumer survivor movement. She's worked at the collaborative support programs in New Jersey for several decades, is the Director of Innovation and Wellness at Rutgers. I hope I have these right, Peggy. She's also worked for many years, as I was saying, at CSP. Which is a large peer-oriented operated agency. But she's perhaps most known for publishing and lecturing nationally and internationally on wellness, peer-operated services, employment, and recovery. And she has been the one who's created the 8 dimensions of wellness that you all refer to, and it helped shape and made so much more holistic the way we talk about people and recovery. And peer wellness coaching, a model that she helped birth that we've really, it's such an incredible time, essential time, that we look holistically at all of wellness as evidenced in the 8 dimensions. Pat Namick is also internationally recognized pioneer, particularly in the world of psychiatric rehabilitation. She was director of the academic specialization in psych rehab at Boston University, where I first met her. She's played a very important role on curriculum development for Boston University for psych rehab, and particularly in projects of psych rehab, wellness coaching, and academic curriculum. She's a former vice president of the commission responsible for the Certified Psychiatric Rehabilitation Practitioner Program. That's a historic achievement. She's a founding member of the Consortium of Psychiatric Rehabilitation Educators and an adjunct associate professor at the Rutgers University Department of Psychiatric Rehabilitation and Counseling Professions. I am out of breath, really, talking about how wonderful our co-presenters are. And I know you'll really, you'll get a lot out of this, and I'll be around to field questions and bring them to our wonderful speakers. So I'm going to I want to also, before I do this, thank Eileen Crosby Negrin from our office, who's responsible for all the mechanics here and all the setup for that. She's done just a fabulous job. And Daniela Labate from our shop will also be on in the background to help out. This is a big team effort within our Niapers family. Okay, Peggy.
Right.
Please take it away.
Thank you, Harvey. Thank you, everyone. And my colleague Pat will each introduce ourselves a little bit more detail. We're so excited to be here today, to be able to be here, actually, because, you know, I was ready for a drive up the thruway to New York and visit up, you know, Harvey and everyone. You know, it's a ritual. And we're going to talk about rituals today, how our rituals have been changed. But it's just exciting that we can actually do this way. So the title was initially Wellness Self-Care, a Habit for Personal and Professional Practice, which is actually a lot of what we're going to talk about was what we were originally going to go through for the executive seminar, but we tailored it a tiny bit for today and just kind of wanted to kind of talk about wellness self-care during crisis. It's the same. We're just going to tweak it a little bit because a lot of what we were talking about then was applying, but this situation gave us a real halt and a pause to really think about a lot of the things we can do. Like during these difficult times, we can still focus on wellness. And that's one of the things we want to reinforce. You know, we're challenged physically, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, occupationally, all the dimensions have impacted, and all the isolation or routines that have been destructive in many people. So this session's going to really highlight how we can continue to keep the focus on the wellness and how this can help us build our immune systems, build our resilience, and keep going out there and helping ourselves and helping others. So really the basics of the self-care we're going to talk about, and really just highlighting that importance of the wellness focus to manage stress, current stressors, future stressors, and really give you a background on that. And really look at your strengths. That's what I hope you take away from this, that you do have strengths and you can build those strengths. The other piece we're going to highlight a lot is some resources and tools that are available that exist already, but also that new things that are being evolving we wanted to make you aware of. And one of the things we wanted to highlight is this this really is a personal, a lot of it starts with the personal, it can work into your professional work, but I think a lot of things we'll highlight, we encourage you to share them with your colleagues as well as families and communities. So hopefully you'll take away something that will be beneficial to you, but not only to you, it's that paying it forward, which we know is so important in recovery. So Pat, do you want to say anything before I dive right in?
No, I'm excited to be here, and our hearts go out to everybody in New York. You guys have had it tough.
Yeah. So here's what our goals are. And so what do we mean by self-care? And what do we mean? It's that idea of those planned, deliberate actions that we do daily or weekly to manage ourselves, to really think about what we do to keep well. You know, and thinking about what does it mean to be well and what works for you. A lot of what we have discovered is that this idea of self-care and wellness and balance is very personally defined, but it's so important for personal well-being and professional well-being. So keeping that balance, that idea of what do we do each day or week to kind of really manage what we're what's happening for us. And it's really, really important that when we think about self-care, we make ourselves a priority. And again, that mask, putting the mask on, it's so symbolic today. You know, we're putting the masks on, but keeping that for ourselves and then making sure other people get the masks. It's making sure we're paying attention to what we need and what we need to do, and building on our strengths, thinking about what we do in our habits and routines. That's very essential. And all of you are probably, the fact if you're on this call, this webinar right now, you've done a lot of things to get here, and you've done a lot of things over the last month or month and a half to keep your wellness going. But I think that we've been shocked. The system's been shocked. So it's kind of jolted us to kind of start to reassess, reevaluate, and really start to be paying attention to our needs, because we are important. and really focusing on ourselves, taking care of ourselves, very basic things can help. So I thought as we were putting this together, we were going to talk about the self-care more and the wellness. There's three things that really underscore the wellness model that really are important, that will frame a lot of what we're going to talking. And it goes back to basic ABCs, the ABCs of the wellness model that, you know, Harvey referenced a while ago. A lot of people know about the 8 dimensions, and we're going to highlight that, but I don't think I talk enough about the ABCs, so I thought it was important. I've been doing this myself constantly for the last 2 or 3 months for sure, and the last couple of weeks definitely, to keep in the mind my ABCs about my wellness self-care. And it really starts with the idea of our attitude and activity, which we'll go into what I mean by that, the balance, what I talked about, how we define that, redefine that sense of balance and restoring that balance and keeping our eye on that balance, and the idea of control and choice. So the first thing with A, as we approach our day, we approach the focus on our self-care, is thinking about our attitude, because our attitude really is the thing that we're going to wear. We wear it every day, and it really can shape the direction of our day, the moment, the future for ourselves. Thinking about that frame in which we view ourselves, what we do, really, really important. So each and every day I do this attitude check for myself. I know sometimes it's a dim attitude lately. It's been a little dim at times. But, you know, what do I do to reshift that in the day or the moment? And that's definitely part of our wellness. It's thinking about it, checking it, and being able to be aware of our attitude and how we are viewing things, viewing others, and re-establishing the way we can look at that to try to help us look at the possibilities or connecting with people who are going to be supporting us to move away from the challenges we may have when our attitude starts to go into a different direction. Important to attitude is activity, meaning that activity is what we do. Our daily activities really define those self-care. You know, it's the basic, when I studied occupational therapy, it's that basic activities of daily living. They're so important, but sometimes get so neglected. But they're essential for our well-being, and right now, our immunity. Think about your immune system. Building our immune system is one of the best things we could do, and there's a lot of things we do in our daily habits and routines that can build our immune system. But most, again, our keeping active in those things, but also checking our attitude can help us deal with the uncertainty and the perceptions that sometimes are being impacted by a lot of the negativity or the challenges or the uncertainty mostly that we're facing. So before we get started, we want to hear, what activity have you been doing for your self-care? What wellness self-care activity have you been doing right now? Maybe today or in the last week. We'd like to hear a little bit about your wellness self-care activity. What are you doing as an activity for your self-care? A meditation, painting and walking, yoga webinars, cooking, taking bubble baths and breaks, yoga and wine, gratitude, oh my God, coloring, crafting. Woo, I love it. Spending time with pets, stretches and walks, a lot of good things. Phone, hiking, knitting, yard work, walking, horseback riding, artwork, crochet, family, friends. I'm trying to go through, if I'm missing some good, oh, these are great. Group calls with family, cartoon dates with my guy, music. Yes, music is so important. Drinking water, breathing meditation, time in nature, healthy eating, Zoom game nights, healthy food and exercise, writing, supplements. Okay, anything, oh my goodness, spiritual outlets, online courses. Pat, any thoughts about all these wonderful activities everyone's sharing?
A lot of the activities involve connecting with other people, doing things, producing things, like the crafts is very creative activities, things that help people relax, reading, spirituality, things that can be comforting. Sewing masks is an example of doing for other people, and doing for other people also can help.
Yeah.
Cleaning and organizing, I think a lot about that one, because sometimes we can take control over our physical space even if we can't control the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
There was something in the local paper here in New Hampshire that said person felt sorry for people with a tidy house because they didn't have anything to clean up while they were stuck at home.
Yeah.
A lot of different examples.
And spiritual group Zoom, lot of things you guys are doing, those activities. And that's really the great thing, that you're doing a lot of these things already. And I think that's that's the attitude. Keep focus, even if it's just one thing you're doing. It's important to remember, despite some of the some of the things we can't do right now, the restrictions, but we're doing a lot. And it's just so important to keep focused on that. We're going to go, so activity, the attitude and activity, ABCs, really important. The balance then, our balance has been moved off, and later in it, we're going to talk a little bit about getting our rhythm back, but finding a way to keep our balance. And I've been really struggling with this because this has been one of my hallmarks of me keeping myself or trying to keep well for many years, is the balance. So it's been altered tremendously, and there's a lot of residual things I'm dealing with now. But keeping in mind, I think the more I'm attending to it and keeping focused on it is the way to be thinking about it. But thinking about that balance and there's some essential things in the balance that we're going to go into, especially with our body rhythms, to keep that balance in gear for ourselves. Because sleeping is something I'm doing a little more of. I don't need to sleep that much, but doing a little more and having to adjust the things. Very, very important to keep it in our mind, that what that balance is, and reshifting it and adjusting our balance, rather than keeping ourselves up all night about it and those kinds of things. So being mindful of the balance. The third C is the control and choice. And this is the mantra for many of us, but it's really being able to, use the serenity statement to keep us in check with what we can change, courage to change what we can, and wisdom to know the difference. It's definitely been something that's kept me alive for many years, and many other people I know. So it's keeping our focus about that on what we can control, what we do have choices over, and we have a lot of things to do. So we're going to reinforce the ABCs as we go along, but I really encourage you to think, as we think about wellness, it's our attitude, keeping active, thinking about the balance, and then remembering the control and choice that we do have in our life. And again, there's always something that's out of our control, but there is things in it, and there's things that we can do moving forward. So Pat's going to move into kind of highlighting what we're a little bit, a refresher probably, but a lot of what we're probably experiencing that leads us to really thinking about these self-care activities, and some of the strategies that we're going to reinforce that you're maybe doing, or you might want to think about building a little bit more of.
So thanks, Peggy. So we're going to start with just talking a little bit about stress and crisis, which is sort of sets the stage for understanding self-care, because when we're under stress and crisis, it challenges our ability to do the things, continue to do the things that we know help us, particularly when your situation changes. It can be very difficult to keep up your routines, or to develop new routines when you're having a difficult time. So we're going to just start with a quick review of what is stress. So I want to differentiate stress and stressors, because I think this is an important difference to understand. Stressors are the events, conditions, changes, and demands in your life. They're the things that can cause this experience of stress. So as Peggy was talking about the serenity prayer, stress and stressors are sort of like the difference between the things you can control and the things you can't. Maybe the stressors you can't control, but the experience and the reaction that you have to stressors is called stress, is something you can often do something about. So high stress has huge numbers of different effects on physical and mental well-being. We'll talk about that in a minute. And also performance. And these are things we know from experience, but also are well documented in research about how stress experiences affect people's ability to work, succeed at school, and do their other life roles effectively. And I think high levels of stress due to the current situation, I think, is almost even an understatement. I mean, we're affected on so many different levels. So while you can't always avoid the stressors, you can alter in some ways the way you react. So the signs of stress, these are just classic. You may get a headache, stiff neck, backache, get irritable, lose your temper. You may feel exhausted. You may have trouble concentrating or paying attention. For yourself, it's important to recognize that when these kinds of signs and symptoms show up, they could be signs that you're experiencing stress, and that is an indicator that you need to do something about it. So just knowing what you're feeling and why you're feeling that way may be the first step in coping with and addressing the situation that you're in. So Peggy's going to talk. Oh no, I guess I'm got one more slide here. I'm going to just show you this slide because when we talk about stress as having effects on your physical health, these are just some examples, and these are maybe things you're not as aware of, that stress in and of itself can cause weight gain. There's a physiological mechanism that happens. It can increase your risk of diabetes. It can certainly mess up your digestion. Many of us have had experiences with that, and there are significant long-term effects when stress goes on also that have serious consequences for your health. So Peggy's going to kick us off and talk about strategies for dealing with the experience of stress.
So yeah, so we have the stress, the stressors, and going back to the ABCs, think about it. And again, about the activity. So what are the activities or the strategies for stress? What could we do or in terms of our self-care to increase our resilience, prevent that burnout, and keep us well? Most important, keeping us well. And some of them, again, it goes back to a lot of this ABC approach. A lot of these things we know, but some of the things we can do, especially the first four, really important. It's hard now to eat well, despite, because many times we can't get to, get the healthy, fresh things, but there are things we can be mindful of eating that are going to build our immunity, build our system. Like I'm finding myself finding those things that are helpful to me to get, like, sometimes it's hard to get them, but I do find certain things or a little bit of a replacement to try to keep that eating routine into that routine, which is so important. Moving our body, even if it's just stretching. I was becoming a walkaholic, I guess, for a while. I was moving a lot, and it's been impacted right now, but I'm finding just doing light kind of movements, stretching movements is just as helpful. So it's altering some of that, but making sure we move, we get up, especially if we are working from home or we are limited in our mobility, finding ways to do it in our existing routines. Hydrating ourselves, again, a big thing that can really help you to deal with stress, but also keep the body functions in good order. Really important. Sleeping, not that we have to sleep the whole day away, but making sure we get that adequate sleep, and especially when we are perhaps under a little bit more stress, we will want to think about that a little bit more. And just being kind to our body is very, very important. So these 5 areas, particularly the 4, really important in our day-to-day habits. Important to keep thinking about the essential self-care that can be building our resilience and moving us forward. So that's self-care, going back to what I mentioned before. What do we do each day? And we heard some great things you're doing and wonderful things, and they're meeting our needs right now. They're helping us to manage the stress that we are. These are things that we can do, and going back to some of those others, some of the things that you have listed here that help us to get and stay physically healthy, because they are such a foundation for our resilience, our ability to bounce back. We are bouncing back from this, but we have a long haul with a lot of this, and there's a lot of aftermath with it. But the more we can build ourselves now and keep doing what we do, that's going to keep us moved. We have been jolted a bit, but it's about reestablishing those habits and routines. And really, again, focusing holistically. I'm always encouraging people to think about, we're really focusing a lot on the physical dimension. And I always did focus a lot because that's really what helped me, because it had that effect on others. But we now have time intellectually to do things. And in some of our words of wellness, we've been putting a lot of really cool things in there. If you want to come to our website to get some more things about the wellness model, really great things intellectually people have been telling us about and sharing. But all the other dimensions, environmentally, emotionally, spiritually, and socially, occupationally, and financially, thinking about our needs and ourself from the 8 dimensions. And I got to keep this one in line because it gets tough on sometimes during the days, but I go back to my wellness wheel and have it around and keep focus on it. So we want you to be keeping a focus on our wellness, people, because people will say, in crisis, you can't have wellness. And we can, and it does work. And I think the more we focus, more our attitude of focusing holistically on ourselves. There's going to be challenges in many of these areas, but there is a strength. So thinking through, we can't go through all of them in such a short amount of time, but we wanted to focus on a couple of them that really people have been, prior to even this, people are showing have been helpful, and some other ones that might be things you might want to consider for yourself or others. So there's what we call unplugging and breathing, that pulling back, taking that time, just taking a moment to just and it can happen moments in the day, and it probably would be best to do it a couple of times during the day, but it's definitely one that's worked for many of us. The moving, and Pat's going to go through a couple of moving things that you can think about doing. The sleeping, and we're going to talk a little bit about the routines and the habits and routines around the body rhythm that we need to think about readjusting, or you are readjusting right now. And then really fun activities you enjoy, like taking that time, like we saw, so many of those things seem so fun that many of you wrote there, but how do we continue to do more of those things and build them into our repertoire of daily self-care? So Pat's going to move us into unplugging. And we're going to do a couple of experientials in this too. So we encourage you, if you can, to engage with us.
So unplugging means just stopping what you're doing. It means pulling away, and you don't have to pull away for an hour. You don't have to pull away for 20 minutes, even just a small moment. And we're talking about this unplugging as having sort of 2 components. One is pause and one is breathe. And we're going to practice each of these one at a time. And one of the things we know from our own lives, and also from supporting other people, is that doing this pause and breathe is calming. It's calming physically, it's calming mentally. There's an extra dose of oxygen that increases your brain's thinking ability. There's all sorts of complicated ways in which your neurology calms your body and your brain by breathing. It's very, very well supported in research as well as experience. So we're going to just start with the first part, which is the pause part. And we're going to do a pause practice. Again, the pause practice can take just a very short moment out of your life. It doesn't have to take a long period of time, but it also can be a longer period of time. So it's what you have, what you can make time for. So there's 3 steps to pause the way we talk about it. And the first one is just to check in. So we're going to do this together. So stop what you're doing. If you're looking at email or writing notes or whatever while you're watching the webinar, just stop what you're doing and just sit quietly for a short moment. Relax, consciously relax your shoulders, your body. If you want, you can close your eyes if you're comfortable closing your eyes. But become aware of the feelings in your body. Notice, what do you feel? What's it like to be sitting in your chair? What parts of your body do you feel sitting in the chair? If your feet are on the floor, what is it like to have your feet on the floor? My back is on the back of my chair. Maybe you feel the back of your chair. What do you hear around you? You don't need to change anything, just become aware. And then as you're checking in with yourself, the second step of pause is to focus on your breath. And you're not going to change your breath. You're just going to notice the sensations of your breath coming in and going out. So coming in, what does it feel like to have your breath come in, and going out? What does it feel like to have your breath going out? You don't need to change your breath at all. Just be aware of it and listen to it and feel it as it comes in and goes out. Your mind may wander. That's fine. That's natural. When you notice your mind wandering, just gently shift your awareness, shift your focus back to your breath. And then the third step of the pause practice is just to proceed back to your day, but without rushing. And before you end your short pause right now, and when you're practicing during your day, refocus on how your body feels. Notice your whole body and notice any sensations that have changed since you took this just a moment to pause. Next, we're going to add a breathing practice. And I wanted to point out that in the pause part of the unplugging, you're just noticing your breathing. But the second part, which is the breathe part, you're actually going to control your breath, because slow, deep breaths calm your body and your mind. So as you're breathing, now we're going to do a breathing practice. So get in position, settle again into your chair, and sit up straight so that your shoulders are up straight, your back is straight, with both feet on the floor. And I want you to take your two hands and put your right hand on your upper belly, just above your belly button, so that your thumb is at your breastbone. Your whole hand is above your belly button, and that's your right hand. And then your left hand is going to go on your upper chest. And this is going to help you pay attention to how you're breathing. So I'm going to ask you to breathe slowly and deeply in and out through your nose. And I want you to notice what happens to your chest and your belly. So breathe slowly in, breathe deeply in and out through your nose. And as you breathe, notice that your upper belly comes out when you breathe in and goes in when you breathe out. And to have a deep breath, your upper hand on your chest will stay still. So try this for a few breaths. See if you can push your upper belly out as you inhale, and let it come in as you exhale. And do that a few times. Notice the feelings of your hand. Notice the movements of your hands. Now, as you breathe, slowly begin to lengthen your out breath or your exhale, so that your breath goes out more slowly and more completely. Don't force it. Just let your breath flow out naturally, but more slowly on the out breath. So as you do this, count to yourself the time it takes to breathe in. And count the time it takes to breathe out. Try slowing down more as you breathe out, so the count is a little bit longer as you breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out, counting the time it takes to breathe. Let your exhale be longer than your inhale, slowing down when you breathe out. Counting your breath occupies your mind. By counting and making your out-breath longer and more complete, you calm your body and your mind. Keep breathing, paying attention to your feelings with your hands, with your belly going in and out. As you practice, try breathing without a break or pause between your breaths. Let go of any pause at the end of the inhale or the exhale. Let every inhale flow into the exhale. Let every exhale flow into the inhale. Let your breath flow. If you do need to pause between breaths, that's fine. Just see if you can shorten the pause. Breathing without a pause helps your mind become more focused. As you breathe, smooth and quiet your breath. Let your breath come in smoothly. Let it out smoothly. Imagine your breath is an even flowing stream with nothing in its way. Smoothing out your breath will help you to quiet your mind. Gradually, make your breath as quiet as you can. Don't struggle with it or judge it. Just let your breath become more subtle and more quiet. And then slowly bring your attention back to the webinar. As you go through the day, you can use the strategy of pause to notice your breathing, and you can use the strategy of breathe to help you become more calm and focused. You can use them separately. We like to recommend using pause and breathe together often throughout your day, for just a moment or for longer. Sometimes I find that just closing my eyes and taking one breath in and one breath out can make a huge difference to the way I feel.
Yeah.
The other thing that we find and recommend is to practice often, because practice will make it easier for you to calm yourself in the times when you really need the opportunity to calm down and relax.
So yeah, thanks, Pat. And I think, you know, those two things are things like there's a lot of apps and resources out there. I know some people find these things to be helpful. Some people have a hard time concentrating on them. The idea is just, it's a couple of minutes or a couple seconds. We have, you know, we can share some resources about this, but they're just time to go with. And so just to be thinking about taking that unplugging just for those moments. And then, yeah, so thanks everybody. And, you know, for thinking about that. And thanks for Pat for taking us through that. The next one we'll go through, we're going to go through it a little shorter because we just, we have a lot more stuff to do here and we may not be able to go through the thing. It's about moving. So Pat, maybe we'll do an abbreviated version of just talk a little bit about moving, and so we can get to the other piece.
Sure. So mindful moving is paying attention to the sensations of your movements and noticing the actions you're doing as you move about. Movement helps keep your blood flowing and tells your brain to stay alert. Over time, regular movement helps you stay healthy and fight off illness. Mindful movement can help you reduce your stress and improve your concentration. And somebody earlier on noticed that it's hard to build in movement during the day. And I think this is true. And many people have trouble with exercising at home. So we're recommending just practicing very simple stretches, as well as doing things like being active, walking if you can, if go with a friend if you can, staying 6 feet apart. We have a colleague who always says at this point in our presentations, clean with enthusiasm. Put your energy into the movements that you do when you're doing your chores around the house. If you can get outdoors safely, do so. Exercise classes, fitness groups online can be interesting and beneficial. We always recommend just being careful to prevent injuries. So should we do one stretch together, Peggy?
I don't think so. I think we should see if we have questions or comments. Any questions, Daniela, that we want to respond to? We have a lot of people talking about the breathing and the different strategies for the breathing and visual techniques. And I think that this is, again, it's just, as Pat went through some of the basic pieces of it, it's pretty basic, but there's lots of different, there's different apps out there. There's different strategies. Someone asked if we could have the exercise in writing. We can link you to a resource at the end where you can get actually that reference, and we actually have an audio, a video link to someone doing that in a variation of that for you.
And someone is asking for written instructions, and there's also a written version there.
Yes, on this website that we're going to show you at the end, there will be a resource. And it's definitely, it's an acquired kind of a thing, but the principles that Pat talked about, then just, sometimes they're with activities that can help you with those things. Some people find the walking helps you to, years ago, my big thing was swimming. It got me into that breathing and that rhythm with the breathing. So really, really things. Someone talked about the tightness you get, just making that movement where doing your movement can be important. Are there any other questions, Daniela, we've missed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one question in relation to the pause and the breathing exercises that you guys did. So they were having a hard time concentrating on the breath, and we're wondering if you could offer advice for folks that have a little bit more difficulty concentrating.
Yeah. Pat, yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I also often have trouble concentrating because I have a very busy mind. And sometimes counting out loud can be helpful for me. Sometimes I will, I have an app that has meditation music on it and has guided meditations. Some of these are also available online. And if you're like me, it may be helpful to listen to somebody guide you. The most important thing is, if you're having trouble concentrating, don't judge yourself, don't scold yourself about that, because that's just gonna make you more tense. So the important thing is just to keep trying. You do really a minute, a couple times a day. It does get easier to concentrate on the breaths, but I find that counting, having a guide, or just really having my hands on my belly and my chest can make a difference in terms of my concentrating, because I have more sensation to pay attention. It helps me pay attention to the breath.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes breathing with movement. I do Tai Chi. I find it easier to concentrate on the breath if I move with Tai Chi or yoga. That can be helpful too.
Someone's offering Headspace is offering some free meditation sessions for New York residents is here. So there are these resources are doing it. I find for myself recently, because it's been harder. I wind up just taking turn the light out. Like I've been periodically even writing it down. I'm stuck in this one office, and I just go and turn that light out, and then it helps me, because the stimuli of just the light or the light coming in from the window, sometimes you want to think about the environment you're in that can help you create the conditions to help that focus. But it's great question. Great, Harvey, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on that one. So many of us are working now at home, and maybe you've covered this in our offices, and sometimes the office space all merges with the living room, the dining room, the bedroom. I'm sure, we all have to figure out how to make that work at home. Do you have any thoughts about that, or observations?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want me to take
you
that,
go,
Peggy?
Yeah,
I have worked exclusively at home since 2008, and for many years part-time before that, so I've had to develop a lot of tricks. One of them is if you don't have a commute to work and home from work, you don't have that time to make the mental shift. So do other things that can help you make the mental shift. The pause and breathe at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day can be helpful. Have clothes that are particularly work clothes. If you have to work at your dining room table or in your kitchen or something like that, do something to clear a space and put things around you that are things you only have out during your workday, and put those away at the end of the workday. So do what you can to sort of mark the difference between work and home. I also, to make a clear difference to me between work and home, I also take a formal break at lunch. So I turn off my computer at lunch and then turn it back on after lunch. And that gives me another sort of moment of transition. When I used to work in an office, I would sometimes eat at my desk. I never do that since I've been working at home, because it helps keep them separate, the work and the home. I hope that's helpful, Harvey.
Yeah, no, that is a question for you, Peggy. I just, I'm a workaholic. I mean, literally a workaholic. And so while you were doing the meditation, I have to say, Pat, that I was going through all the comments that people have made about what they do, because they were interesting and I thought they would be usable. But my question back to you, Peggy, is that so many of them are so positive, but so many of them can be done in some kind of an addictive way. Any one of these things we can sort of get hooked to. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts about that. Some of us crochet, then we become compulsive crocheters, or runners and compulsive runners, whatever the behavior is. There's so many great strategies as I looked at them, but there's that fine line where it becomes a strategy and then a compulsion.
Yeah, probably true for a lot of people. It's just keeping that check for yourself. So like my swimming got up to a certain level at times, or my yoga gets to a little, we just have, I think it's checking in and keeping that balance. So like, are we watching the sleep, watching the time, watching the different times of the day? Are we stopping and starting at a certain time of the day? I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. That's a big one. It's putting it into that 24-hour, time. Where we keep the balance with it. But yeah, because I am that one. I'm going to crochet. Everybody's going to get a thing for Christmas from me. You know what I mean? I mean, whatever I do, I'm a big one like that. But I try to keep it in, try to keep that mind on that balance of it all. And right now, I know I found like on the weekends, I'm doing yoga for 3 and 4 hours. But like I said to myself, I'm going to do that because that's actually preventing me from doing the work stuff. And I'm doing yoga in a way that's certain things. And right now I'm not beating myself up. Part of me was saying, are you going to be able to keep this up later on? And I'm like, no, I'm not. And I'm doing it now. And I got to then maybe make the time where I'm going to make a call to someone, or I'm just going to go and sit and do nothing. So it's keeping check with yourself. I think a lot of it. And then having, like you're saying, Harvey, you're great. Checking it with each other. Like, Peggy, are you doing that a little too much? Is that getting a little crazy for you? Checking it with your head, and then maybe checking it with someone else. It's a great, great point. Because these, we want to do these things, but we want to make sure we keep that balance too. And we do have a lot of time. So those are really great. And I love this discussion that's going on. I'm looking to the left over here. There's some amazing discussion I'm finding. I'm looking forward to reading this, because I think what people are talking about, some of the commenting on some of the things that we've said. And someone talked about they put a self-care space in their living room. I noticed that earlier on as a strategy. But those are great questions. And I think the working from home, Pat's actually going to be doing a series on that coming up for an agency that requested that. So we'll be happy to share. And we're going to be putting everything we're doing, we'll be putting in the Words of Wellness. And Pat, that will give us impetus for the next Words of Wellness to put the working from home stuff in that next edition.
Yeah, great idea. I'll make a note right now.
Yeah. So the moving, we wanted to do, everyone, we could do a little move. We might not have enough time with that, but we might go back to a move. I wanted to just make sure we get through. We've had some good discussion. I did want to highlight this rhythm. Our body rhythm has been jolted. We've had a jolt. So it's really reminding ourselves about our rhythm and getting that rhythm and knowing the rhythm's going to adjust and keep adjusting. And keeping that, the sleep is a good stress buster, and it's a good way for our body, and it's an important one, has so many of the benefits that we know and we see here. But we want to make sure that, that's been altered perhaps in many different ways. And many of our other aspects of what we call our body clock, and this is a pretty complicated visual, but it definitely shows you that like body clock that we have that has been jolted. We got it right at daylight savings time change for most of us who are in states that have that. We had daylight savings time. We had all the changes right away, and our body clock were just slammed. But again, look at this slide. You can get them to be mindful of your timing, your sleep. When is the sleep? And people's body clock's a little different, but there are some good physiological ways to see about people's when the right sleep and wake cycle works for people. And that would be part of our self-care, thinking about what that's for you and your balance. When is it best when we have our best time for coordination and activity? You can see, when are we most alert? When does our body temperature start to shift a little bit? When do we have, bowel movements? That's a big thing too, is the whole, but elimination is so important for good health. That gets all messed up when we're home and we're not on our eating habits and routines, going back to some of the earlier. I really encourage you to think about your body clock, and are you resetting your body clock so it's optimal for the things you're doing? And, especially your sleeping, your eating, going back to those things we talked about, the moving, and our best productivity for things. So just wanted to mention that the body clock is something to be mindful of. It's something I'm always thinking about, that planning my routines and my habits around this body clock, and making sure, especially when it gets jolted with time changes or things that are happening like right now in the world, to be mindful of that and get our activities back in line with when it's best timing for our body to be doing the certain activities that are so essential for our health and well-being. So again, back to the sleep, which is really a big one in this visual, is that just getting that sleep schedule and figuring out routines around bedtime routines, as well as the sleep environment. Again, that becomes tricky, the working from home thing. So thinking about that, a lot of you sounds like you have that in order, but might be for those of us who are not, or family or friends who are having some sleep difficulties, which I'm hearing a lot of people, helping them to develop those schedules and putting the environment in place that really helps them. The physical activity, we didn't do the move, we might get to do that move, but the moving piece does help a lot with our sleeps, keeping that sleep regulated, and watching what we do, drink or consume or eat closer to bedtime or during the day definitely hits. And then if we have sleep problems, then not to fight it, but then just to go back and try to be able to reset ourselves. And I'm just finding, if we do get sleep challenges, finding things that we do relaxing or time to relax during the day to try to help counterbalance that. And again, the other piece is about the screen time, how much screen time you're on. One of my strategies is I don't have any kind of electronics at home, which really helps me keep that sleep cycle going well. The next one, which I think is really important, is doing fun and creative things, finding those creative strategies that we have that really, many of you talked about them, but they're important, and doing them, I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm starting to think about, okay, Christmas is coming. What can I start making for Christmas as a hobby, doing things like that? So, just thinking about those creative things, and Pat's going to talk about a few more, and especially about April being, what is this month? Yeah.
So these are some of the things that we've written about on our Words of Wellness newsletter, which Peggy will in a minute give you the link to that. And a lot of things are things that you all have already mentioned. The thing that we wanted to add is that April is National Poetry Month. And there are lots of ways you can find poetry to read, poetry to listen to online. The Poetry Foundation has poems that you can listen to. And if you didn't know it, Sir Patrick Stewart from Star Trek fame is reading a sonnet a day. And you can Google Patrick Stewart sonnet and the YouTube link comes up. He's also publishing it on Twitter. And that's another interesting way just to take a pause break. It doesn't take very long to listen to somebody read a poem. And I find that it shifts my mind a little bit. And particularly if I do it like before lunch or at the end of the workday, it's another way of helping your mind shift away from your worries and your pressures.
Yeah, so Pat, do we want to do one move quick and then we'll go to
Sure.
the other one? We just want to make sure we had enough time. We're just going to do one quick move to kind of stretch ourselves before we get to some of the last ones and some of the resources. So maybe
Yes,
we'll
so
do,
I'll do one that I find, we have a whole series of these, and Peggy will tell you about how to learn more about these and access a video and some print. But I want to do one that I find very both relaxing and energizing. So if you, again, sit up straight, do the best you can with your concentration. If your mind wanders, don't even worry about it. But hang your arms straight down to your sides and just shake them out a little bit to help your arms and your shoulders relax. And then slowly, as you breathe in, lift your arms up with your palms facing down. Reach out to the side, and when they get out to be about shoulder length, pause and turn your palms up, and then lift your arms the rest of the way up. If your hands can come all the way together at the top, that's fine. Just do what feels comfortable for you and stretch up. And then as you breathe out, you go back down again. When you get to shoulder height, you're going to turn your palms over, facing down, and bring your arms down again. We're going to do that one more time. Arms up as you breathe in slowly. Turn your palms. Lift your arms the rest of the way up, breathing in. Slowly stretch at the top if you can. And back down again. Arms down to shoulder height. Turn your palms over and the rest of the way down.
yeah. Oops, so. Yeah, that's a great one. That's a good one for our shoulders and a neck being by the computer and stuff. And that's a tough one. You know, a lot of times people say they can do these things, just the things. They're good for us to do. And I know a couple friends who have fibromyalgia who have a real hard time with that one. So be mindful if you do have any kind of activity limitations, but it really does help to just kind of move our body. And we have a series of them on the reference I'm going to show you in a few minutes, but we wanted to just make sure we can get through everything here in the session. So the tools and resources, there's a lot of tools and resources for this wellness self-care. Many of the strategies we've highlighted, as well as other ones that might cover many of the other dimensions. So I have we have the words of wellness. We encourage you, reach out to us if you'd like that. A couple of the last editions have been focused in on the current situation, but almost all the previous editions have something that probably is related to a dimension or the domains that could be helpful for yourself or sharing with others. And we get a lot of people very interesting in those words of wellness. You're usually anywhere from 2 to 4 pages long, and they have a lot of just helpful tips that are good for people in recovery, providers, families. They hit across they're for everyone, we find. Pat, do you want to mention anything else about words of wellness?
I'll just mention that if you go to the website, cspnj.org, the newsletter is under news and the wellness inventory is under resources.
Yeah, so you can get both of these there. The wellness inventory is just a nice little inventory that we've developed over the years, and we have variations of that people find that are good for just tools to kind of see where you are, see where your needs, going back to the earlier part of the presentation, just to kind of see again, what are your strengths, what are some areas you want to strengthen right now, and they are just really good tools that are here on that website. There's also the 8 Dimensions of Wellness booklet that's also available. This is on the website. You can get this one that kind of corresponds with the Wellness Daily Plan. And this is a very popular book. We've been putting this together since 2011. We've been adapting it and adjusting it slightly based on feedback from people in recovery in the field. And this is a very popular resource, publicly available on the website. The Center for Health, the Center on Integrated Healthcare and Self-Directed Recovery website. You can access that one as well. They're free. share them. People have found them to be quite helpful. Related to that is this whole website that definitely has other kinds of resources that has a special page on accessing COVID-19 wellness resources. So they've organized all of the resources that could be potentially COVID relevant, and also they're there, they're free, they're publicly available. They address many of the dimensions of wellness, and they're really helpful for people to just find something. You want to mention anything about any of them, Pat, the journaling one or?
Yeah, so there are a number of resources on there. One of them is a little workbook on journaling. And I'll also mention that on each resource, there's a little podcast, a 5-minute podcast or so on how to use it in a longer webinar. There are things that you can use on your own. There are also things that you can use if you're providing support to somebody else.
Yeah, so they're really great resources. This is the newer, this is where some of the exercises we did, this is a new tool that we've developed through our work at Rutgers University. It's a self-care guide for professional caregivers is here, and it has a video, it's a video that you can guide. It goes through the pause, the breathe, the move. You can access this up on this website. The whole booklet comes up in the video, and there's also companion books. It's based on our work in the field, but we've tailored this one particularly. The professional guide is pretty general for professionals. The family supporter guide that's there, as well as the individual guide, are a little bit geared towards a program that we're working on, geared towards people with memory challenges. But the strategies would just be useful, really. There's not anything that it's, they'll be useful there. We encourage you to go up there because it is all of this is free. It's publicly available. You can download the guides. You can click onto the video, and it takes you through, and it breaks it up into segments, or you can watch the whole thing. So it walks you through a lot of what Pat did, and it goes into more detail on some of the move strategies, and the breathe goes a little bit longer. So do you want to mention anything else about the website here, Pat?
No, just that you can access it for free. You can download the little booklet, and if you prefer like written instructions for the breathe exercise or the move exercise, those are in the little booklet. So they cover the same topics, but there's some extra stuff in the booklet.
Yeah. Okay, and then finally, we want to hear some chats, thinking about what we talked to today about wellness, self-care. What's something new you might try in the next few days? So we heard some great things people did, but was there anything that got either what we talked about or from the conversations about the wellness model, the wellness self-care, the ABCs? What would be something we would you would want to do, a new self-care activity you might try in the next few weeks? We'd like to hear. The move exercise was mentioned. Yeah, that's great. The move exercise. Mindful of taking breaks to stretch and breathe through the day. Stretch more frequently and taking breathing breaks every 45 minutes. Exercise at home regime. Yeah, good videos out there that can help with that. Gardening. The head and shoulder exercise. Movement.
I've created the whole list of these, and we'll add that to some materials we'll send out.
Yeah,
they're really wonderful ideas.
Yeah, calm music. Oh, we could have talked the whole thing about music so much more. The sleep and schedules, definitely. Separating work from being at home. Eating breakfast, yes. Developing that habit around when you need to eat and whatever works for us. Gardening, sleep hygiene. The ABCs. People will have, the access to the slides. The slides will be available. Taking a break for 15 minutes to recharge. Music and basic food we can now eat. Practice breathing, like walking. Do better with my clock, especially on long work days. Yeah, that's hard, those long days. And the attitude is everything. Some say attitude is everything. Yeah, the Fitbit helps remind me to move. So a lot of things people are doing or thinking about new things. You know, taking a dog for the walk. That's a good one when the weather's decent. Great. A lot of different things. Yeah. Yeah, we got great things people are doing or will be doing. And it's basic. I think a lot of what we talked about are some basic things, but and basically the more we can do these things and build them and share with each other. And I know Nappers is doing a mindful meditation. Is that still going on, Harvey? 15 minutes?
Yes, every morning and
Great.
throughout the day if you want to log in.
Great. So that's a resource to access too, for sure.
Yeah, there's a new meditation thanks to Ruth Cologne Wagner. It's on our website, www.ny8prs.org, niapers.org, and it'll be right in the middle of the homepage. And if you look, there'll be video recordings from the past as well, so you can have a whole bunch of experiences. As you can see from my new background, you guys have taken me to another level of enlightenment here. So.
Yes, we got the, and I have this in the background. This has been helping me. I'm not down by the Asbury. I'm trying to, I might listen to Bruce I think Bruce and a bunch of them are doing something tomorrow. I'm hoping I can listen to it, but I would like to be down there.
That's right.
But it definitely helps. You know, so wellness, self-care, those things we do each day to manage our stress, get ourselves and stay well, and just keep that feeling of wellness, like keeping ourselves unplugging, breathing, moving, focusing on sleeping, rest, and most important, doing what we enjoy. You know, really being important to think about what we do to enjoy what we do, and taking that time to do that, because it really can be so important for ourselves to do those things, especially now that we have time. And again, just making that time for ourselves. And just again, thank you so much for everybody for participating today, you know, in the session. And we just wanted to share a few things. And if there's other resources we can share, just please reach out. But we're hoping that you have a better sense of what you're doing already, what you can continue to do, and then what other tools and resources that are out there that you can plug into. And we are happy to create new things based on new ideas people have, just as wellness has evolved, that some of these resources will have evolved. And we just want to thank you for the opportunity to present today.
Peggy, I just want to, I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody, not just here today, but just throughout all that you've given our community. I know me, I've watched it for years. I've learned from you. You're a humble person, but you're a mighty person, and you teach us so much. You've created so many openings, and you've done that again today. And I'm hoping and expecting the next time we have an event, you'll be able to join us in person. That the virus will be gone, at least in measurable ways, and we can join together and come back home together.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to visiting.
Me too. Okay, folks. Well, thank you very much. Thanks. And stick around. We'll be back next Tuesday with another series of events. We'll be hearing from the Commissioner of Mental Health and representative agencies and the Special Assistant of the Commissioner on the New York's mental health response to the virus. We'll also hear presentations from peer leaders on peer crisis responses. And another presentation regarding, I think, trauma. So please join us next week. And again, Peggy and Pat, thank you so much for today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Well, if you folks are back, I guess this is our closing comments. I'm sorry for the issue. We had some connection problems. I'm hoping to, there's Len. Okay, we're getting there. And there's Edie. Okay. So if one of you two would look at the chat box in case things come up as we're talking, that would be great. But maybe I'll give each of us a chance to talk about what this opening day has been like. And for me, it was very rich. Edie, I thought the panel with the leaders that you had this morning were extraordinary. They've really been leaders in the field for a long time, for decades. They brought so much wisdom and guidance and candor and humility and honesty and so many ideas. I know we're going to be incorporating them at NIAPRS as well. So real kudos to you and to your facilitation. Do you want to say anything about them and the presentation, Edie?
I think just that that we've talked a lot about leadership and the issues that befall leaders of all levels. Again, not just executive leaders, but those of us who are choosing to lead any of our services. And it was wonderful to have all of those folks answer things so honestly.
Absolutely. I was only in the presentation. Actually, Len, do you have a comment about the leaders one? You were in there as well.
That was tremendous, and kudos to the panelists, really speaking to the needs of the attendees. And as Edie indicated, we'll be doing a lot more on those subjects because right now they're really, leadership is so important, but in this time, it's just heightened even more. So thank you for moderating that, Edie, and a spectacular job.
Pleasure.
And that's a good point, that we are going to be, we're going to have a whole series of webinars throughout the rest of the month and the succeeding months. And if you all have ideas about them, you can, email it to us. You can email it to Len at lens@niaprs.org, or me, Harvey R. at niaprs.org. But we very much would like to be on target. So I was so uplifted by Peggy Swarbrick's workshop that, as you can see, I've been lifted to another planet. It was really a marvelous presentation, and Peggy and Pat Nemec, again, historic figures in the field for decades in wellness and psych rehab, employment, peer support. They did a fabulous job. It was a mix of experiential exercises and information and tremendous chat box. I've never seen a chat box filled with, she just happened to ask folks, what do you do to get well? And there must have been 100 answers in 2 minutes. So I've written a number of them down, and we'll try to share them as well. And again, if people are listening who haven't heard that by now, the presentation is recorded and the slides are also available, and they'll be on the website on the homepage. When would you say, Len? By tomorrow?
Within 24 hours.
Within 24 hours. So I missed the other presentation. Len, I think you were in that one. Do you want to comment on that one?
Actually, I was in the one with you, Harvey.
Okay. I was in the other one.
Edie was in the other.
Would
yeah,
you?
I'd be happy to chat about it. It was Andy Cleek and Tony Salerno talking about workforce retention, and the real takeaway there is about how we work together as a team to be able to feel good about the work that we do. And I think in these trying times, that becomes more important than ever. And yes, there's salary and benefits, and we all know that, but it's really around motivation and caring and being appreciated for what you do. And it's around supervision and how we share with each other that the work that we do is important. And so it was also chat. It was great. And in the leadership one as well, I couldn't keep up with all the chat in the chat box. And I think that is what's wonderful about our community, is that we've got a lot to share, a lot to say. And I'm just glad and thankful to you guys for being a part of being able to move this seminar virtually, with which went pretty seamlessly, except for our final closing remarks. And so I think we did pretty well on that. So it was great to be here with that.
Work in progress. I just want to know whether Tony Salerno was doing his Billy Crystal routine again.
Not this time. But he did tell plenty of jokes. And he did put up a very funny quote.
I'm
So
sorry I missed that.
you'll see it in the slides.
Sorry, I missed that. Are there any, in the chat box, I'm seeing some answers. Is there any advice, recommendations, comments you want to, we only have a few more minutes, but you're more than welcome to chat on. I noticed in the last, like I say, with Peggy, she asked a question and it was Zooming. So I don't know, many of you may have already left, but certainly you're welcome to send us your ideas. Here's a couple. Interested in more training related to psych rehab, not necessarily peer certification. Notice most of the courses in the peer academies are related to peer certification. They do psych rehab and CCBHC and a pros. Who would I talk to about that? Let us get back to you about that. We're very connected to the psych rehab movement. Certainly would be, we'll follow up on that too. Is that Brian Hollander from California?
Brian Hollander.
Welcome, Brian. I'll keep up with your comments. It's great.
The crack of dawn for Brian Hollander. Came on at 6 a.m.
Well, he's
from
dedicated.
California.
He's a dedicated NIAPRS guy. Once in the family, always. Any other comments or questions, though? I've said to you about where to find things on the website. I've mentioned to you there'll be a whole host of events coming. If you're on the NIAPRS e-news, you'll be seeing news every day and evidence of variety of webinars and opportunities. For those of you who have been asking us about the NIAPRS conference, which is currently scheduled for September, I want to say 22 to 24 at the Villa Roma. We don't know at this point whether we're going to be able to pull that off with the virus, whatever. We're a little doubtful, but if there was any way to have like a welcome back after the virus, it would be at the Villa Roma. We'd be just delighted to have you with us, but we just can't say anything about that now.
I would encourage people to join us next week, next Tuesday, actually, same time, same place. We've got on our agenda for next week, we've got the New York's mental health response to COVID-19. Ann Sullivan will be here, and a number of organizations from across New York to discuss what they're doing. Our workshops include peer crisis innovations and also creating a successful value proposition. So we've got good things in store. So make sure you tune in next week.
Okay. So thank you so much. Thank you, Len. Thank you, Edie. Thanks to all our presenters. Thanks to all of you. Please keep your chats and your notes coming in. Look on the website, get the e-news, and we'll be in touch soon. Be safe and be well, please. We'll talk to you soon.